You're listening to Psych with Mike. For more episodes or to connect with the show with comments, ideas, or to be a guest, go to www.psychwithmike.com. Follow the show on Twitter @PsychWithMike or like the Facebook page @PsychWithMike. Now, here's Psych with Mike. Welcome into the Psych with Mike Library. This is Dr. Michael Mahan, and I am here with Mr. Brett Newcomb.
Good morning.
How are you?
I am so happy it hurts.
I was just going to ask you what kind of things make you happy.
Time to travel.
Do you have a...
Good books to read. Friends to be with. A little bit of alcohol to drink. Humor. And loving people.
You like loving people?
I think so.
Okay.
But I don't like a lot of people.
I was going to say...
I don't like hypocritical loving people. Like some of the religious people I know are pretty damn smarmy.
Yeah.
You know, they love everybody.
Right.
But I don't like them.
And I would agree you don't like a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so the people that you're not that into, it really wouldn't matter if they were loving, right? Because it wouldn't be like, oh, if somebody was loving...
So you're attempting to go a whole lot deeper than I was planning on going. But yeah, one of my conceits has always been that I can be acceptable in almost any group of people.
Right.
Which requires some skill levels of engagement, of attending, of conversation, of reading the signs, warning signals. But above and beyond, and aside from all of that, I generally like people. Although individuals, I make specific judgments about.
Yeah.
People is a global category.
I've always tried to cultivate and even curate my own curmudgeonly personality.
That's because you try to imitate me.
Well, maybe. I don't know. My family says I've been that way for as long as they've known me.
Oh, well, okay.
But, so I've always said, I don't like people. And my wife has always said, that's ironic given what you do for a living. And I've always said, you don't have to like people to do therapy. Would you agree with that?
No, I think you have to.
You think you have to?
I think you have to have an investment. And I think if you don't invest... What I really think is if you spend time getting to know somebody, then you will find things to like.
Exactly.
So there may be an initial reserve,
right,
or resistance. But if I invest in paying attention to someone and learning about their hurts and their losses and their goals and their desires and their character, I find the human condition to be incredibly strong and incredibly attractive. And I find something then to care about everybody that I'm working with, or I don't work with them.
Well, right. Everybody
or they don't work with me.
Everybody that you're working with. So this is what I would say is that Mother Teresa probably walked down the street and saw everybody and thought, that's a wonderful person, and I would love to get to know that.
I don't think
person.
anybody can do that.
Okay.
I don't. I think.
And so I, as a rule, wouldn't do that walking down the street. But when I do therapy, you're absolutely right. I deeply, genuinely care for everybody that I've ever worked with.
So I am very human. And I find the human condition to be judgmental. And I look at people and I make judgments. And I don't like that about myself. And I fight it hard. But my unconscious voice is looking at somebody I don't even know, somebody at the grocery store, somebody driving down the highway, somebody walking on the street. And I'm like, why are they dressed like that? Oh my God, they're so fat. They're whatever triggers me. And I really fight myself.
Which comes from your shadow.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But I'm saying I think it's part of the human condition.
Sure.
So one of the things as a clinician that you must learn to do in order to be good at what you do is you need to learn to corral that and park it somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a deliberate, conscious choice and skill. So when I'm not on duty, when I'm on autopilot, I hear that voice in my head that I'm disrespectful of. I don't trust it, I don't like it. Judgmental. And I'm like, well, who are you to say that about those people? You don't know, you haven't walked in their shoes. You don't know what's going on in their lives. You don't know what they're dealing with. But that part of me, that human condition part of me that I don't like, says, you got to work better on being perfectible here. You got to work better on being the person you want to be instead of the person that you are.
Right. And I can honestly say, I don't know that I've ever experienced that
Really?
doing therapy. I mean, I experience it on the street all the time. Yeah.
Say, I think I've been with you. When you
Absolutely. But
I heard that leak
therapy,
out of you. Yeah.
I know that we've talked about, and we talked about in school, that you have to learn how to be able to like people, even people that you might not like on the street. But when I've done...
See, when you say that sounds artificial to me, Michael. You have to learn how to like somebody. I think what you learn is a level of openness, a level of receptivity, how to position yourself. It's just like to do meditation. You have to learn how to get yourself to a centered spot.
And you say you don't have to learn, you just have to open yourself to that? So you're saying that's a different... That we all innately already know that?
If I invest myself in listening to you with neutrality and accuracy and empathy, I will discover things about you that I like and admire.
Exactly. No, we're both on the same page. Absolutely.
So.
And that's why I've said,
phrase it differently.
That's why I'm saying I don't think I've ever had that experience doing therapy where I was judgmental for exactly the reasons that you just defined. Because if you listen to somebody openly, genuinely, non-judgmentally, then you're not going to do those things that we do when we're on the street.
I remember having a client that was a convicted pedophile. He was referred to me by his work. He had to come. He didn't have the option. He was very unhappy about that. And he came in, first couple sessions, we were gandy dancing around. How are we going to do therapy? What's this going to be like? And I said to him at the very beginning, you have to understand that I have no tolerance, no acceptance for your desires. I will work to be able to hear you and discuss with you whatever about what we need to do to help you understand and control your behaviors. But if I ever am made aware that some child is at risk because of you, I will report you in a heartbeat. And he said, oh, I don't think I like that. And I said, I don't think I care.
Yeah.
It's only going to work my way. And so I will invest in spending time with you and trying to find out what makes you tick and how to protect you so that we can protect children. But I'm not ever going to even pretend to be okay with what you want or what you have done. And if I find out that you're still doing it, I'll put you in jail. So he came to see me for about 6 months, and he tested it. And I mean, you have to draw very, very firm boundaries. If I come to know this, I will report it. So he came in one day and told me about a situation, and he said that, oh, this came up, and my wife called DFS, and they came out and they did a report, and there's nothing to it, and so you don't need to worry about it. And I said, I need to see the report from DFS. And he said, I'm not going to show it to you. I said, okay, I'll call him. So I called him. And he called me names. He cussed me out. And I said, we're not going any further with this. You can't come back unless I know that child is safe and has been determined by others to be safe. And if you can't come back, you can't go to work. So it's up to you. We'll either do this now. And he still, so I called DFS and said, I need to report. So.
And when
with
you
him
were
sitting there,
when you were working with him, did you like him?
I found things about him to be sympathetic. He had had some real trauma in his life. He was a human being. He was suffering. He was a smart man. He was a manipulative, dishonest man. I found him to be fascinating in a way, but almost like a snake hypnotizes a bird. And there was a constant level of...
Did you feel like he was a puzzle?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And I can totally see that. And you could like that. You could like...
He could be engaging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, most pedophiles can be engaging. I mean, that's why they're successful.
Yeah.
So, okay, then let's switch gears. If somebody comes to therapy and says, I want to learn how to be happier, is that a realistic goal of therapy? And a larger metaphysical question, people say that the goal of life is to be happy. Is that true?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Life just is. It comes with waves. There are storms and there's sunshine. There are good people in your life and bad people in your life. I don't have a single global answer, and the terminology is difficult to deal with. It's difficult to parse. When somebody says, teach me how to be happy, I don't even begin to know what that means. And so my first question back would be like, explain to me how it is that you're not happy. What are you aware of? What do you feel? What's going on in your life that you define it as an unhappy life? And then take those one at a time. How can we address that? If you are unhappy with the people in your life, are we open to talking about how to change the people in your life? Where do you find other people or new people? And how are the people in your life impacting you? And what choices do you have? What power do you have to make a different choice? And what would that cost you? For instance, if you decide my family's really sick and dysfunctional and they're contaminating my life and making me miserable, are you prepared to walk away from them?
Right.
Do you have what that takes? Do you understand what that might mean?
Right.
Or are you open to trying to see them differently, same people, but understand them with more compassion? For instance, when people come down with Alzheimer's and they begin to deteriorate, one of the things that regularly happens at a certain point of that deterioration is they become angry and hateful. And when that happens, if we've talked about, okay, your grandmother's going to be like this, and you see it coming, can you position yourself to a perspective that can tolerate that or encompass it with your greater caring for how is she surviving physically? Is she getting baths? Is she getting food? Is there heat in her house? Does she need to go to the doctor? Even though she's going to be hateful to you and say hateful, hurtful things to you, can you not take that personally at your core identity? And we can discuss that, and we can plan for that, and we can picture that, and maybe give them some tools for surviving it without destroying that relationship or her memory.
And so for me, I think that what you're talking about is really one of the points that are on the horns of the bull that I struggle with, which is if you have life circumstances that are such that you don't have any good choices, then how do you even talk about being happy? But then I struggle with it because then I'm like, okay, should the goal be to say, okay, given the life choices that you have, select one, and then we can talk about how to be happiest within that life choice. And I really struggle with that. What does that mean? I think ultimately it comes down to the individual, right? What does the individual want, and how do they want to live within the choices that they make?
I think it comes down to patterns and framing. I know when you're working with people that are clinically depressed and they feel trapped and they just sit in a chair and stare at the wall, or they cry all the time and they can't do anything. I mean, I've talked to a couple of people that say, I can't even get out of bed, or I can't even take a shower and brush my teeth. They feel powerless. So one of the ways to attack that is to give them some things that they can see concretely that they have power to do. And so you start with simple 5-step things, 3-step things. If 5's too many, start with 1 step. For instance, brush your teeth every day. And write it down. I brushed my teeth today. Make a checklist, make a chart, X. All you have to do is make an X on a piece of paper. But if you can do that, then we can say,
there's the duck.
Here is concrete information that says you can do something that you choose to do. And so then can we build on that? Is that a foundation that we can build on? So
Right.
tomorrow, can we do two things?
Right. And I've had clients, and people may not believe this, but I can guarantee you this has happened more than a couple of times where I've done exactly that. And they will come back weeks later and say, I feel horrible about myself, giving myself credit for brushing my teeth. That's so ridiculous that I have to give myself credit for brushing my teeth. And I would say to them, but did you brush your teeth? And they'd be like, yeah. And I said, did it make you feel better? And they're like, yeah, but it makes me mad that something so benign as brushing my teeth is something that I have to give myself credit for. And I'm like, but this is a process. You're working the process. If you work the process, it will get better. But if you tell yourself, I can't work the process, or I'm a bad person because I have to work the process, you're just digging the hole deeper. There's no value in that. But it's really hard for people to be able to accept something like what we're talking about. Just brush your teeth and give yourself credit for it.
It is hard for them to do that, and they're using every skill that they have to fight getting better, to stay sick. And it's called a flight into sickness. So you have to learn how to point that out.
Yeah.
You know, you have some strength. The strength of your resistance to getting better is strength. We have the strength. It's like gas in a can. You can put it in the car. You can put it in the lawnmower. You have it. You're putting it in the wrong machine. You're putting it in the service of the wrong action. So let's do something different.
And what I tell people is the part of you that wants to stay sick is a real part of you. And it has a life the same as the part of you that wants to get better. And the part of you that wants to stay sick doesn't want to get snuffed out. And so it's going to fight back.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to gird yourself against that.
So if you have been able to develop a relationship with them, then that's part of the dance of that relationship. And you're able to say, I honestly see real strength in you that you possess control over. I see that it's misdirected. I'm challenging
that's
you
good. Yeah.
to redirect it, even marginally, even at something as, because you never start at the core. You never make progress where you need to make it. If you're agoraphobic and you can't go out of the house, you're trapped. And I can get you to go on the front porch and drink a soda and stay out on the front porch for 10 minutes, set an alarm clock, stay on the porch for 10 minutes. And then this week, all we do is get you on the front porch for 10 minutes. Next week, we get you to go out to the mailbox and check the mail and come back. We make incremental change that I keep track of because I want to point it out to you. Look, your internal monologue is saying you're trapped and can't do anything, that life sucks and you're screwed. But my record keeping says you chose to do this, you chose to do this, and you chose to do this.
Yeah.
So could you choose to do one
Somebody's
thing?
got to keep a record of it. That's really important.
Yes.
And if the client won't, then the therapist needs to.
And the client won't, other than mentally.
Now, obviously, we would like to get the client to the point where
Eventually.
they're able to do that for
So
themselves.
that's one of the down the road steps.
Right.
Now, I've been tracking this for you and asking you about it every week. Same thing you do with a suicide contract. You make a suicide contract and say, well, I'm just going to go kill myself. You say, well, I need you to promise me that you won't do that this week or do anything about doing it this week until you come back, whenever your next appointment is 10 days out. And then when they come back, you got to ask them, did you keep the contract?
Right.
I mean, obviously, they're sitting in the room, so they did. But then you ask them to extend it.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to do this to the next week. Because if you don't ask them, they internalize, well, you've given me permission, you don't care. It doesn't matter. You know I'm going to do this. So then they go home and do something. It's a very complex dance. And that's what the clinician has to learn the skill to dance. But they can't take the power. They can't issue commands. They have to encourage and persuade and give accurate, empathic reflection. I have to reflect back to you. I hear you. I see this in you, but I see it differently. You maybe are colorblind. I see pastels. Let me tell you, that's a pastel shirt you're wearing. Now, you can either trust me or not, but you can't see that color. I can see it. So
let's take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk specifically about some of the things that we would do.
That we know that work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, if you've gotten this far into the show, then obviously you find the show to be worthwhile, beneficial, maybe even helpful. And so I just wanted to say, if you've gotten this far into the show and you want to help us out, even if you don't want to help us out, just do it anyway. Go to Apple Podcasts and rate us and leave a review. That is super helpful. Subscribe to the show on YouTube and hit the bell icon so that you get notifications when new shows drop. That stuff is really, really helpful for us. And I know that Mr. Brett agrees.
Absolutely. Reviews are positive. Positive reviews are more positive, but negative ones are as well, because it helps you decide how to focus and how whatever you're intending to say is being heard.
And the secret is the algorithm doesn't care whether the review's positive or negative.
As our friend Mike Norton says regularly, feedback is a gift.
If it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike. Okay, we're back. And so first, I just have to do a tangential thing. So the duck came back, and I have the window of the Psych with Mike library open, and I actually didn't know if that was a duck outside or if that was a duck. Yeah, so I was like, where's that duck? But I think that at this point, so up to this point, we've been talking about trying to break people out of their malaise if they're really, really stuck in a rut. But if somebody has an idea about wanting to try and be happier, however it is that they define that. So the first thing that I would want to do would be to define, what does that mean? I mean, if you're telling me you want to be happier, is there a way to, observationally
define your terms?
Yeah. To measure that, because otherwise, how do you know if you're making progress?
Right.
So that's the first thing. But then if somebody says, okay, yes, I want to be happier and I want to engage in behaviors that are going to make me healthier and happier, what are some of the things that we would do to try and help them along that road?
Well, it sounds a little sanctimonious sometimes, but doing something for somebody else is the thing that makes you feel better. So if you see someone that needs help, if it's like, I was at Lowe's the other day with my wife. We were browsing for something and went out to the car. And the guy that parked next to me had bought this big lawnmower, and it was on one of those big flat beds. And he and his wife were trying to put it in the back of the car. And I walked up and said, would you like some help with that? And his wife said, oh, thank God, because I don't think I could lift this end. And he didn't say anything.
Yeah.
I mean, he was like, you're a strange man. You come up to my car, what are you doing? I just said, would you like some help? Because to me, that's what people do. As if they have an opportunity, they see something that needs to be done, or see somebody that needs some help, you offer to help. Offer to help, widow lady lives next door, offer to go to the grocery store for her. Offer to bring her groceries in when she goes to the grocery store. Do something for someone else, and that will make you feel better about yourself.
And there's even biology about that, so that's pro-social behavior.
Yeah.
And that's what we call it in psychology. And we know that engaging in pro-social behavior raises the levels of oxytocin in your body and in the body of the person that you do a kindness for. And so oxytocin is a positive hormone that makes you feel less stressed, and it makes it reduces the levels of cortisol, the stress-related hormone in your body. And so we know biologically that actually works, not just for you, but for the person that you do the kindness for as well.
So there's an article in this month's Atlantic magazine about 10 concrete or specific steps that you can do to improve your general level of happiness that frame you to be in a happier place. And the first thing on the article is the one that we're talking about: invest in family and friends. And by that investment, what we're saying is do something for someone else. But there are 9 more, and before we run out of time, let's run through what they are. These are suggestions that this particular psychologist has done some research on and is saying, these are the concrete things that I would recommend that you try. And then so part of the dance that he does with his clients is try to encourage them, facilitate them, empower them to try some of these things. So the second one is join a club. Join some kind of club. Doesn't matter what it is, but it's a group of people with similar interests at that moment in time who come together to do something. It could be a remote aircraft, a radio-controlled aircraft club, and you can go and watch. You can go and buy your own plane. You can go and fly the plane. You
My
can help
dad
other
used
people
to fly remote control.
But you find a community of kindred spirits or common interests. I have a friend that belongs to a Scotch tasting club, and they dress up in kilts, and they're like Scotsmen, and they bring out all these different brands of Scotch, and they sit and debate which of these breweries are better, which product is more likable, why, is it the peaty flavor, is it from the Isle of Islay, they get into all that stuff. And then I have other friends that belong to a bridge club. And they go and
They build bridges?
They play duplicate bridge, Charles Gorin type, 4-no-trump bridge, card game.
You just said a bunch of
Yeah,
words.
I know you don't know, but it's a club, a chess club, a club at church. I have another friend whose husband committed suicide, and she's going to a club. It's a suicide support group for families of people who have family members that kill themselves. And she says it's very helpful, very beneficial to go. And she feels less alone, less misunderstood, not understood. So join a club is a second suggestion. Any kind of club, make yourself go. So he goes through all 10 of these things, and then he kind of summarizes the main point. I'll run through some more of these things, but I want to make sure we summarize the main point.
Yeah.
The main point is that you have to have intentionality and a pattern. So if you select 2 or 3 of these things to try, it can't be hit or miss. It can't be once and it doesn't work, and so I'm not going to do it again. You have to invest in the progress, and so it becomes a patterning exercise.
And really, psychotherapy, for the most part, every single issue that we talk about, at its core is really about consistency.
Yeah.
Consistency is always the key. If I offer you some kind of behavioral change that I can tell you will work for whatever your issue is, that's true as long as you apply it consistently. But if you only do it one time, then you feel better, you have catharsis, but you don't get better, you don't have cathexis.
Or you don't feel better because you tried it and it didn't work.
Yeah.
Which sometimes is an agenda.
I was going to say, that can be a self-fulfilling
conclusion
prophecy.
in service. Yeah. So let's go through these other ones. Mental and physical activity. You have to be active. You have to do something. Read a book. Do your times tables. Memorize the presidents in order and recite them. Do something physically. Walk around the block. Take a shower. Do 10 push-ups. We can find a specific example for someone to attempt based on their physical capacity. Because you can't start. If you haven't done anything physically, you can't run 10 miles. You have to build up. You have to do 5 setups today, 10 setups day after tomorrow, 15 setups 3 days from now. You have to build. And you have to do it every day.
That's right.
And then a month out, you're like, hey, you know what? I can go up that flight of stairs and I'm not winded. But it doesn't just happen. So mental and physical activity is required. If you just sit on the couch and watch TV in a receptive posture, you're not going to get any better. Your life is not going to get any better. Practice a religious perspective, a religious belief, a religious program. And that's not to say any given church or religion, but the contemplation of something larger and ethically more meaningful that you can internalize as a check against your own meaningless and impracticality. So not advocacy for or proselytizing for a specific religious interpretation, but some sort of religious perspective,
and
larger than me.
I just made a note for us to do a show on the difference between religion and spirituality. So what I would talk about, what you're talking about is spirituality.
Right.
So religion is following a dogmatic path that's already written down. Spirituality is exploring what makes you feel connected to the universe and answers the existential question of why am I here?
Or attempts to.
Yeah.
Right.
And so being spiritual is essential to the human condition. Being religious is something that you can do. Those two things can go hand in hand, but they don't have to.
All right.
Yeah.
Physical exercise is the fifth one, which to me is a redundancy from the first one. Act nicely. Mm-hmm. Act nicely. You know what? Fake it till you make it.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, but that's one of the ones where consistency is key. If you act nicely one time, you might feel better because you get a shot of oxytocin. If you act nicely, consistently, eventually that becomes who you are.
Yeah. Be generous. It feels good to give people things. Mm-hmm. It feels good to do things for people that you see that they need. Mm-hmm. There are many cultures that have histories of if someone admires something you have, well, I really like that, give it to them. Arguments can be made, especially in materialistic societies, that we have to accumulate more, we have to have more. The one that dies with the most toys wins. And obviously having a bunch of stuff makes you feel better because it's a hedge against uncertainty. It's a hedge against nature. Mm-hmm. I got more stuff than you got, so I must be better. God or the gods must favor me more. That's bullshit. Give stuff away. For somebody else.
My whole premise of why Christmas gifts are associated with Christmas time is because it's actually about the giving. It's not about the receiving. And I think that we have that perverted in our capitalistic society. Yeah. But I think that gifts should always be given without any perception of reciprocity.
Well, they're not gifts if there's a perception. They're briberies.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think there are a lot of people that go around bribing.
Yeah.
The loved ones in their lives.
If I do this for you, you'll like me better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Check your health. Be aware of your system and how it works. It sends you messages. It tells you we got to deal with something here. You got to listen to it. You have to stop and smell the roses. You have to stop and pay attention. I had a pain. It's caused by something. It's a message about something. Inflammation in your body is something that is hard to be aware of. I mean, if you have a swollen elbow, you know, it's swollen. But you don't know if you have inflammation in your internal systems.
Right.
Go to the doctor, have lab tests done.
And that's an evolving thing. You and I are both at the age where we may not be able to do the things that we could do when we were 25.
I get so mad about that.
Yeah. And if you live in your 50s, 60s, and 70s being angry that you can't do the things that you could do when you were 25, then you're not going to be a very happy person.
My wife and I were hiking with some friends in the Alps in France. And
show off.
I was struggling to get to the top of the mountain.
Well, but you were in France hiking the Alps.
So the kids that we were with were running up the damn mountain, and I'm huffing and puffing and struggling, and I was getting really angry because I used to be able to outrun those kids. And now I'm creaking along at the end of the line, and I'm struggling to make it. And I pushed myself to get to the top, and then when I got to the top, my blood pressure was up, my heart was beating, I was shallow breathing, and it feels just like, you're going to have a heart attack. Yeah. And we're going to have to leave you here because we can't carry you down the mountain. Right. You know, sit down, catch your breath. And I was so mad. But it was that thing about you can't run 10 miles if you haven't walked 600 feet, a half a mile. You have to build up to it, build your stamina, and you have to be aware of your capacity and your health.
But then at your age, you would have been able to take a couple of deep breaths, catch your breath, rest the time that you needed, and then look around and genuinely appreciate the view that you were witnessing, which is something that those kids probably couldn't do.
But I don't know if that's a pretty philosophical point. We're talking about I look around at a lot of people my age and older who've lost their balance and their ability to walk. They're on walkers or they're in wheelchairs. Or they have to use a cane or two canes. And I'm like, even though it's a struggle, keep walking as much as you can.
Yeah.
Get up and walk.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, I can't walk. I said, walk 50 steps, walk a block, sit down, wait till somebody comes to get you. But walk a block every day, and then when you've done that for 2 weeks, try to walk 2 blocks.
And there are ways to retrain your proprioceptive senses, and it's an investment. I mean, it takes a long time, and you have to start really small. But there are ways to do that. But we don't do that. We don't train elderly people to really be aware of their proprioceptive system, their vestibular system.
Well, and we give them too many excuses to not do anything.
To not do it, right. Yeah. We give them a wheelchair or a walker, then a wheelchair.
Or you turn
and then
on television and everything they sell is a drug.
Right.
And buy this drug. And then they say, this could kill you. It could cause this side effect and that side effect. And if you're taking these other drugs with it, it'll definitely kill you. But just talk to your doctor about that.
Yeah.
But buy it first.
Yeah. Tell your doctor you want it, and then talk about all the side effects. Yeah. But purchase it,
All right.
So,
experience nature. Pay attention to that. Get out of here. The more civilized our society, in quotes, civilized becomes, the less contact we have with nature. The less we know about, is it a full moon? Is it a quarter moon? Is it a waxing moon? Is it a waning moon? Is it time to plant the harvest? Is it time to harvest what we planted? We don't know. And we don't need to know. We have air conditioning. We have running water. We have food that comes in a can at the grocery store. So we don't have to pay attention to that the way mankind has always had to pay attention to that. And so it enhances your capacity to be happy if you have a level of exposure and awareness to some elements of nature. Go for a walk in the park. Listen to the birds. I just went camping the last 3 days. At night, there was this flock of owls that were talking to each other around our campsite. And my wife and I sat in our tent and listened to these owls. And it's an amazing thing to hear. So it's an example. The sound of running water, snow-capped peak of a mountain. There are just so many beautiful things.
But you have to take the time to experience those things, and whether it's philosophical or not, and to appreciate them. You have to mindfully participate in that experience.
Sitting around a campfire and listening to the crackle of the fire. Seeing the glow of the coals.
And you can be there with another person, and you don't have to be talking. You can both be experiencing that, and that can be meaningful and profound without anybody saying a word.
Then the last one of these 10 that this man suggested in his article, socialize with colleagues outside of work. In our society, we change friendship groups when we change jobs or when we change education levels. If you leave high school, you think, all these people I went to high school with are going to be my lifelong friends. 5 years down the road, most of you aren't going to know if you're dead or alive. Most of that cluster of people.
Right.
Because life moves and people move. So some of you will have moved away. Some of you will just lost touch because you have nothing that holds you together. That happens. So you do that in high school, you do that in college, you do that in graduate school, you do that in employment opportunities. So when you're in a situation where you're in contact with people on a regular basis, socialize with them some for enrichment purposes. Make your life better because you have a barbecue, you have a birthday party, you all go to a concert, or you all go to some picnic or activity. And if you change jobs, start that socialization with the new people. If you can and want to, continue with the old people. But part of what happens too is you don't fit anymore.
Right.
You don't know the inside jokes. Isolated. You don't know the personalities. The other people rotate and change, and so you lose that anchor. So you need to make a new anchor with your new group. So try to socialize with people at work. I worry about that with the movement today for working from home.
Absolutely, and the amount of time that even people in our age group spend on screens rather than in one-to-one interpersonal communication.
Right.
Yeah.
So these things that we've listed today are things that can make a difference if they are done with intentionality and repetition. You have to select the ones that you might be willing to try. You have to try them. You have to have encouragement and support from people around you who know that that's what you're trying to do. And then you have to do it deliberately, consciously, repeatedly. If you do those things that way, you can expect an improvement in your quality of life.
And consistency is the key.
Amen.
So hopefully that was beneficial. I know we ran long today, but I think that was a great discussion with lots and lots of information. The music that appears in Psych with Mike is written and performed by Mr. Benjamin DeClue. I hope you guys are liking some of the new things that are happening here at the show. And if you do, and even if you don't, share the show with somebody and let's see those numbers go up, because that's really going to help us over the next couple of months while we're struggling to find our place in this space of advertisement. So the music that appears, I said that on Psych with Mike, is written and performed by Mr. Benjamin DeClue, and if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike.